Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Willie Come Run Up. We actually don't have as nearly as big a haul as we had last week, so likely won't have that big of a haul for the rest of the month. Anyways, let's kick things off with this week's X-Men and Star Wars books, starting with Astonishing X-Men #1, part of Fall of X. So where we left off, Orcus attacked the Hellfire Gala. Basically killing more than a few of the mutant attendees, as well as all of the human attendees, and basically getting Xavier to kowtow to terrorists. Among those dead, or among those killed, was Bobby Drake, Iceman, who was, melted by Nimrod. So we open, we get some of the Orcus propaganda, but there's also new propaganda where, it seems like ice is, there are mutant societies that seem to involve massive amounts of ice. So in San Francisco, people are being attacked by various mechanical devices that are basically pulling sentinel bits. X gene detected. Tertiary target acquired, blah blah blah. It seems that they've opted to target a guy who had briefly used a drug called Experience, basically a designer drug which briefly gives users mutant powers. It seems it does create a detectable X gene, detectable by Sentinels, but yeah. So, Iceman shows up, saves the day, freezes the nanobots that are turning devices into these micro Sentinels, and then gets rid of the ones that are still remaining. Kisses the guy, and then heads back to Antarctica. At the Bloom, Orcus is trying to figure out how exactly to get, to stop Iceman. He is kind of messing with their propaganda. He's supposed to be dead. Why isn't he dead? But Iceman is based out of a giant ice castle in Antarctica. That he's still alive thanks to his boyfriend Romeo, an Inhuman, who was basically able to, at Iceman's castle, so to speak, basically bring Iceman back to life thanks to his emotional attachment to Bob. But he's also able to but he can only be gone for so long before the rebuilt form falls apart, and Romeo is making a point of keeping track of where, basically hot spots where Bobby's needed. Judas Traveler is contacted by Orcus agent Woodrow with a new plan to lure out Iceman. We see that the new plan is to apparently attack Iceman's mother at his home in Fort Washington on Long Island. Leading the Orcus assault is a group referred to as the Elements of Doom. There's also an explanation of how the whole how everything works with Romeo and Iceman. There's the Ice Palace, which is basically a little bit of Bobby in the entire thing. Empathy on Romeo's part seems to be stronger the stronger Romeo feels about someone. War room is inside the palace, made of Iceman's ice, and so Romeo feels pretty strong about Iceman. War room is basically a satellite dish, an amplifier that generates the empathic display. The empathic display, or Iceman icon, a hologram, basically not psychic, empathic. But the display, you feel it more than see it. Reacts to Bobby's emotional states, no matter where he is in the world. Makes what's happening inside Iceman invisible to the outside. Helps Romeo affect and aid Bobby's emotional state from afar, but not forever. When Bobby breaks down, but they're out there, it should break down. It should break down in there, and it's basically a status bar, basically like a video game, or so Iceman says, but it's no game. But that is where the issue ends. Strong start. I'd actually forgotten that this was one of the Fall of X books when I read Hellfire Gala and saw Bobby get killed off by Nimrod. Because, yeah. Well, I probably would. Otherwise, Iceman's death likely wouldn't have been as much of a shocker to me reading it. Moving on, though, to our next book, we've got X-Men number 25. Not all the mutants at the Hellfire Gala, and or just on Earth, left the planet. Xavier is still there. A few other, and a handful of others are still on planet, though most are elsewhere. Where the Hellfire Gala ended, Kate Pryde, the Red Queen of the Hellfire Club, was leaning against the gate, which is normal for her. She can't use them. And this was just as Orcus was locking down the gates. And so she fell through to the Jerusalem Krakoan mission. The Krakoan embassy in Jerusalem, which was teeming with Orcus operatives. There's a quote. The issue is a quote from Kate. That's what the X-Men do. They save everybody they can. So the issue begins, though, with a flashback to during the early days of Krakoa, with Kate talking to her rabbi, because she's trying to wonder why she can't use the gates. A plot point that has, to this day, never been resolved. Over the course of the discussion, her rabbi does wonders if Kate still believes in God, and especially with everything she's seen, As she puts it, I know you've seen a lot of weird stuff up close. Though Kate says that yes, she does. After what happened at the Jerusalem embassy, Kate returns to the mansion I'm assuming goes into her old room, digs on the floorboards, pulls out her swords along with a note left by one of her that was she kept with the swords as well from one of her teachers when it came to those swords. Oh gun. You will forever be the weapon that made you, Shadow Cat. The Shadow Cat spelled with a K rather than a C. Dr. Stasis does some propagandizing, and to explain that Firestar is a she's one of the good ones. She stood against the evil of mutant kind, and even and helped in bringing them down at the Hellfire Gala. The gates are being left up as a reminder. Fei Long is talking with the president. The president points out that Fei Long made certain promises that have not been kept. Captain Greco attacked the Capitol. He's still on the run. Or his promised results. Fei Long thinks they're getting to them. Most of the mutants have left Earth. It's true that there are still a few of the worst apples to deal with, which is why Star Sentinels are stationed on the front lawn of the White House. Also, a robust defense system is being built on the Moon to protect them on Mars attacks. And he's also developing war machines deploying war machines to Phobos above Mars so they can make sure they have total information awareness on any potential battlefield. This is, of course, with a lack of oversight. Of course, there are those in the media that state that mutants that didn't leave the Earth are being imprisoned, kept in gulags run by Orcus. They are, and well, not all of them are. It's stated that the Henry Gyrick facility makes Norway's prisons look like Abu Ghraib. Among those kept there is Scott Summers, who is being tormented by Stasis. Stasis, offers Scott the hey, we'll stop your pain. How exactly? Stasis wants to help Scott, but he needs Scott's help. They can help each other. And all Scott has to do is endorse the official story of the Mutant Massacre. There'll be trials and convictions, but then, Stasis gets Scott and all of his people off Earth. Little compliance will save lives. Scott's not complying. And Stasis explains the setup that Scott's in. Adamantium neck brace connected to an adamantium filament, and anytime Stasis wants, Scott can be yanked at great speed into a hole the size of a baseball. Scott continues to be defiant, threatening Stacy with the X-Men, though Stacy's just like, there are no more X-Men. Krakoa is empty, gates shattered, treehouse burned, medicines laced with a kill switch, humanity calling for the death of mutants. Orchis keeps urging restraint. Not all mutants. But it's only a matter of time before all the remaining mutants are pulled, kicking and screaming from whatever hole they're hiding in. Which the surviving X-Men are currently using the Morlock tunnels as the various Morlock tunnels as base of operations. Sync stitches up Kate before she heads out once again. Trying to get a sense as to who all there still is. On Mars, she finds Woofer, who has been left there rather abruptly by Orchis. Basically says, "Hey, find out who all is here. Names, powers, and also just forget that you saw me come through a gate." But yeah, the Civil War there's a Civil War cranking up on Arakko. Elsewhere, Forge realizes that he's not on Earth and the gates aren't working. If the gates aren't working, the Children of the Vault have been freed. And yes, the Children of the Vault have been freed. Kamala Khan is among the mutants still on Earth, and Emma has basically modified her family's memory so that she never died. As far as Kamala Khan never died, as far as her family's concerned. Saying that hey, I know I suggest you. Be open and proud about being a mutant, but right now maybe that's not the best advice. Maybe the best thing for her would be to forget that she's a mutant. However, Kamala has decided not to. Also, the Avengers Unity Squad is on hand. They're popping up, basically strategy sessions between Cap and Sync, and Emma is trying to find out just what happened after Kate fell through the gate. Whether or not she actually tells Emma is unknown, but we get to see what happened. She fell through. The Jerusalem Embassy was teaming with the Orchis personnel. She gave them the chance to surrender. They laughed in her face. And the laws of Krakoa went right out the window. One Orchis trooper gets his sidearm phased into his skull. Two of them get phased into each other. One gets phased into a roof. Another gets his face smashed into the roof. A couple get grenades phased into their chests. Another gets his heart phased out of his body. And one comes to a point where there's only one left. And he states that the X-Men saved him. When he was up on the Bloom, he was sucked out into space and they saved him. And Kate says that, that's what the X-Men do. They save everybody they can. even their enemies. And then she says, it's a shame that those X-Men are dead now. She snaps the man's neck. Apparently after that, she hid the evidence by phasing all the bodies into the roof completely. But Kate's moving on to her next mission. Self-imposed. Killing Firestar. And that is where the issue ends. Oh boy. Kate's battle with Orcus was that was something. But yes, Kate is considered a high-level threat, being a known member of the Quiet Council. So yeah. Moving on though to our next book, we've got Magneto #1. So this takes place during the era wherein Magneto had taken over as headmaster of Xavier's school. Xavier was, I believe, in space with Empress Delandra. It opens with a danger room session pitting the New Mutants against the original Brotherhood of Mutants, with some modifications made to the knowledge of some of them. For example, Mastermind having knowledge of the Beyonder and summoning making an illusion of the Beyonder to give the New Mutants pause, and then also programming in a Master Mold to attack them when they let their guard down. But the New Mutants clearly don't hold a high opinion of the Brotherhood. Like it's not like they're trying to, they're calling themselves the Brotherhood of evil mutants. And but it's a far easier thing to let's see. He quotes Dostoevsky. Nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer. Nothing is more difficult than to understand him. But that night, Magneto's having trouble sleeping and walking the mansion, runs into rain, reading one of Xavier's histories, trying to understand Magneto, and she asks about. She knows he's suffered a great deal, and asks about it, but he doesn't want to share it. Sends her to bed, but he also calms down. He manages to calm down a bit. Say, hey, well, you guys have been begging for a holiday party, so you'll get it. But he thinks about, reflects on his past, including his first encounter with the X-Men, and basically kind of saying that Magneto was in some ways a mask. There's already anti-mutant sentiment, but Max knew that Xavier wished to, he and Xavier were friends, and he knew Xavier's stance on it. So hey, why not give the world a mutant enemy to focus on rather than aiming their hatred at all of mutant kind? And the X-Men, the original 5, stop him at Cape Citadel, and Max somewhat thinks that maybe he wore the mask a little too easily, and maybe the mask and his real face began to blend into one. He blamed, falling into the imagined, the persona of Magneto on his magnetic powers messing with his mind, or messing with his brain chemistry. But that was just an excuse. Um, but yeah, Magneto goes out for supplies for the holiday party. Comes back. Mansion's been attacked. The New Mutants are all unconscious, with the exception of Warlock, who is definitely damaged, injured. The attacker is still present. It's a woman in red, wearing what seems to be a red and orange version of Magneto's helmet with a slightly different crest on the headpiece. She defeats Magneto and takes him prisoner. Warlock recorded visuals of this and shows it to his fellow New Mutants when they regain consciousness. And now, let's explain that she is Irei, Queen of Wrath, and leader of the Sisterhood of Evil Mutants. And she's welcoming Lord Magneto home, having put him back in his red and purple outfit, and bound him to a chair. Presumably in such a manner where he can't use his... as the chair is clearly made of metal, there's probably ways of keeping him from using his powers. And that is where the issue ends. Interesting. I like the idea of Magneto reflecting on, kind of saying, yeah, the whole, Magneto was originally just supposed to be a character. That's all. Just, a character for everyone to focus their hatred on. Even admitting that, the look of it, the cape, the helmet. It was all dramatic flair. But maybe he leaned a little too much into it. He's also haunted by... When I say haunted by ghosts, I don't mean there are actual ghosts that are haunting him, but memories of people from his past, including his younger self, that he's haunted by. Moving on, though, to our next book, we've got Star Wars Yoda, number 10, wrapping up the miniseries. Yoda has been ruminating on his past and the time between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Last issue, we discovered he had been talking with the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But he thinks back on Bree, one of the children he befriended in the early issues. But then on Bree's planet Turak, the Death Star shows up, and Bree is suddenly replaced with young Anakin Skywalker, child Anakin Skywalker, and Yoda must face Qui-Gon. He awakes at the start, and Obi-Wan's still there, trying to convince Yoda to train Luke. And the two of them Yoda and Obi-Wan's spirit have ended up at the cave. Yes, that cave. Yoda goes in, faces his demons. His fallen apprentice, his late fallen apprentice, discovering also that it was Count Dooku who killed Yaddle. Having to face friends that he failed. Bail Organa, Padme, Mace Windu. Well, and hearing the Emperor basically say that, Yoda is the greatest of his apprentices. Blind and unaware. He loses hope, but Bree reminds him that failure is the greatest teacher. And he overcomes the challenge of the cave. Comes out with the instrument that Bree made for him. And agrees to train Luke. And we get a definitive timeline point. This is happening either shortly before Empire Strikes Back or in the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, as Obi-Wan states that Hoth is such a forbidding world. And that is where the miniseries ends. I like this, and I really dig the idea of kind of looking back, having the miniseries like this where you get multiple stories showing past untold tales of specific characters from Star Wars. There are plenty who do have untold tales to tell. Moving on to our last one for the moment, we have Star Wars Dark Droids #1. This is our this is this year's big Star Wars crossover. We've been getting hints related to it for most of the year. The Crawl, to explain things. In an effort to stop the Galactic Empire, Lady Kira gambled on an ancient device to disrupt the Sith's connection to the Force. She did not succeed, and in the wake of her failure, an ancient and deadly entity was released. First, it comes for the metal. Then it comes for everything else. But the entity that was released realizes it is a droid, not an organic, because, well, the way it thoughts, the way that this entity thinks. And then there are droids everywhere. Some are friends, some are more disposable. We see R2, a training droid, battle droids, Triple Z and BT, 4 LOM, the Falcon's computer system, Jabba the Hutt's translator, Chopper, a medical droid, construction droids, power droids, astromechs. You get the idea. But the Spark Eternal combines with this entity. And the Star Destroyers arrived at a Maxine station. Basically, pick up and destroy anything that might pick up and dispose of things. Cart away everything, as ordered by the Emperor. A K2 unit picks up the Spark Eternal bonded entity, leading to it taking over the K2 unit. Upon returning to the Star Destroyer, the new programming spreads to every droid aboard the Star Destroyer. Then all of the Imperial officers aboard the Star Destroyer are killed and released into space, as are mouse droids. One, good job, evil droids. Hell of a body count there. Now if you just get that Star Destroyer to the Alliance, that'd be great. At the colony of the Second Revelation, Ajak, once upon a time a droid revolutionary, learns of what's happened and decides he must ready himself for battle against this force. But the various mouse droids that are released into the wild, one finds his way to the Rebel fleet, eventually infecting C-3PO. who is walking in on an Alliance briefing as the issue ends. Okay, so problem with that ending is, I'll admit, the problem with that ending is we know 3PO's going to be fine. It's 3PO. The only thing I figure is we're setting up the whole, all that, the whole thing from Rise of Skywalker of R2 having, knowing how to reset 3PO. But otherwise, I like this. Good start. Interesting premise. I like that it's also bringing back the Spark Eternal. Anyways, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Big shout out to Patreon patron Xander Lee. Thank you so much for your support. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Mastodon, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.